I'm about to put everything on the line. I'm going to let my subscribers invest $1,000 of my own money. Okay, so I keep getting asked, Tom, how do I start investing? How do I set up my own account? Well, I intend to answer these age-old questions through this series by setting up my very own account so I can just let you vote on how I invest my money through it. So today, I want to let you, my audience, choose between 10 different options for what I spend my money on, and then we'll follow it together throughout the year, looking at how that money grows or loses money. So you might be wondering how I, a random Australian 16-year-old, came up with like $1,000 of my own money to be able to spend on this video. Well, whilst you might have been sitting there waiting for the next Tom's Money Magic banger, I've been working my ass off. I haven't spoken about this too much, but I do in fact have 2 jobs, and working around 1,000 hours this year has meant I've racked up quite a bit of money. And most of it's just been invested behind the scenes, but I wanted to give back to you, my audience, for holding out on me and waiting for my next upload. So now, you get to choose what happens to my money. You get to determine its fate. Okay, so here are your overall options. You can either just make me set up a new boring bank account and we can watch it gain a little bit of interest throughout the year. Or 2, we can go into the general stock market, but into the safer option of investing into ETFs, which are groups of companies that don't grow as fast, but they also are more stable. Or you can go into option number 3, which is going into the stock market, but instead into individual companies, which means that we have the chance to make lots of money or to end up with cents on the dollar. So it's time to hear the options. What is on the table for you to choose from to determine what happens to my money? And if you don't really want to hear the reasoning behind each of the stocks of why I chose them to be options, just skip ahead in the video or go straight down to the comments and vote on what you want to happen to my money. So now let's start with the 5 ETF options. And the first one is Vanguard Australian Shares, which is a relatively safe ETF, trying to follow the overall Australian market by constantly monitoring and altering the composition of the companies and stocks that make up the group of assets, which are then divvied up between all the different shares in that ETF that you can buy. Number 2 is Vanguard Global Shares, which aims to follow the overall global market just by following the largest companies such as Google or Alphabet, the parent company, Apple, Amazon, and things like that. Over the last 12 months, it has seen a higher growth than Vanguard Australian Shares. However, it can't be assumed as a constant trait as always because you never know what's going to happen. The third option is FANG, which is a composition of the largest tech companies from around the globe. It has seen pretty unforeseen growth this year based on the fact that the technology sector had a pretty large hit last year, so half of the growth is probably just them recovering from what happened. Your fourth option is the ASX 200, which is not a managed fund like before. It's calculated more automatically. So it takes the top 200 companies, as the 200 in the name, and then it takes their market capitalization, which is their share value multiplied by the total shares, and this gives them the weighting on what percentage of that index the company will make up. Your fifth and final ETF option is the NASDAQ 100, which is pretty much the same as the ASX 200, except for the NASDAQ stock exchange, and only 100 companies in this instance. Now onto your 3 individual stock company options. So we're starting with Apple, which is a little bit biased in my case. I like Apple, but they have had some pretty good growth this year due to the overall technology sector falling last year, and it has been shown as maybe explosive growth that might not be safe for them. However, they are in a good place overall because they've had steady growth over the last 2 years on average. Your second individual stock option is Wesfarmers, which is a big conglomerate in Australia which owns many companies which have household names, such as Bunnings, Kmart, Target, Officeworks, and Flybuys. And this acts as a sort of ETF in itself, producing pretty steady growth as well as some nice income in the form of dividends with a current yield of 3.42%. Your last stock option is CBA, or Commonwealth Bank of Australia, which is what's called a blue chip stock, which is pretty safe. In fact, banks are one of the safest individual stock options to invest into because they have a beta under 1, which means that they're less volatile than the overall market. And they also, well, at least CBA, has a current dividend yield of 4.07%. Even though its last 12 months haven't seen great growth, this metric doesn't include the dividend income that you would receive, which you would want to look at as income for your overall investment choice. Okay, so we're done with the options, aren't we? Oh wait, that mystery 10th option. Oh yeah, so if you don't like any of the options I've just listed, then what you can do is vote for this option, and then just reply to that comment with what you'd like to see instead. And I'll take the most voted comment from that as what will happen to the $1,000. Now, I know what you're going to say. Isn't it pretty risky to invest all of your investments into one thing? Or isn't there this big thing called diversification? Well, what I have to say is you just have to find out. No. So there's some fees on the investment market, which happens with every stock transaction. And we don't want that to harm our capital too much. Like, we don't want to have a $25 fee 10 times over just to invest $1,000. What we want to do is only have it once. And as I said before, I'm going to be investing every few months or so. So it means that I will end up with a bit of diversification. You just have to hold out for a bit. And what I'm going to do is through the next few videos, it'll be going through initializing the account, investing the first chunk of money, and through them, I'll go through all the different fees that you have to pay so that you know how to start investing. So yeah, I want to set a goal for myself for around every 2 months I invest a new $1,000. And that means that there'll be videos coming out for you to vote on what happens to the next $1,000, and I'll be following the growth throughout the way. But I'm going to do fortnightly videos overall, so some of them might be my normal term explainers or any other content, because we can't just say, oh, this stock went up 15% in the last 3 weeks, except before that it went down 10%. Oh no. Like, that's not exciting content. So now, on your way down to the comments past the subscribe button, I want you to vote on what option you want me to pursue and determine what happens to my $1,000. That's all for me today. I've been Tom, and this has been Tom 20 Magic. See ya!